Good morning. How you doing? It's lucky it's winter time here in Sydney, so we're going to sit really close together and keep everybody warm, and we'll keep the air conditioners low and snuggle in. Luke, when you get a chance, can you just hit the funky beats? Do you like Luke's music?
Lovely.
Sorry, guys.
He's missing his girlfriend with that music. So thanks for joining us. I promise that we're going to have a wonderful day today. I've got some of the latest strategies and ideas that you can apply to your businesses immediately. And this stuff works. We've been trialling and testing this strategy since 1984. We've been sharing this with more than 1,000 small to medium-sized businesses around the world. We've had 5 million people experience these methodologies, and they work immediately. It's like a treadmill. How do you get value out of a treadmill?
Turn it on.
You turn it on, you don't hang your clothes on it, which I know some of you do. And you get value out of it by using it. And the more you use it, the more value you get out of it. So what I want you to do today is to apply this immediately. So you're familiar with some of the faces in here. We've got some new faces and we have some old faces. These people that you're going to meet today could change your life. So I encourage you to get to know one another, exchange business cards, and help each other grow your businesses. So you do have a training manual there in front of you, and it'll be tempting to sneak through and try to see what's in it. What I'd like to do is just to go through one strategy at a time. And if you do that, we'll be on the same page and we'll all grow our businesses. Now, Lisa Insole, a good friend of mine from Italy, she had a fear of rejection. And what we'll find is that 43% of business owners have fears of all kind. And this fear held her business back. What she stopped doing was she stopped selling. She stopped talking to people. She stopped asking for the order. And what happens was the business started to go into a decline phase. Now, she was already successful. She had 100 people working for her. So she thought she was doing good. But she didn't realize that one fear was going to hold her back. She let go of that fear, she neutralized it, and what happened in the following days was phenomenal. She went out and she started to sell. She started to ask people to buy from her. She started to ask more people to buy from her. And she added €1 million of new sales into her business within 21 days. And all she had to do was eliminate one fear. So you may have a fear that you're aware of or you're not aware of that could be holding your business back significantly. Our good friends at Salmat Australia, their business was in a decline phase. They're worth $450 million, and you'd think you could sustain that, but they couldn't. So they had to reinvent their business model. And they realized that their people were not very emotionally intelligent. They wouldn't work well together, and they couldn't connect with their customers. Now, one of their slogans in their business is get close to your customers, but they couldn't do it. So they learned emotional intelligence strategies, which we will learn today. And what happened was that they grew their business in 60 days by 41%. They increased productivity by 41% because of emotional intelligence. Their backlog reduced by 39% in under 60 days, and their revenue went up by 75%. It's a lot of money. And you can do the same, but it starts with emotional intelligence. One of our family companies, Regal Mushrooms, based in Penrith, they were in a decline phase and they were already successful. They were already operating at $45 million per year, but they were not emotionally intelligent. My cousin who runs the company was doing a great job, but he had his own mental blocks. His managers, his team had mental blocks and they had income glass ceilings. I sat down with them, I said, what do you think you can do with your business? Can you grow it? And he knew that the industry standard was picking mushrooms at 60 kilos per hour. But because of the mental blocks inside of the business, they had restricted their picking rates to about 23 to 25 kilos per hour. Over 5 years, we've raised it up, and as a result, they've doubled their revenues in 5 years, and they're now a $90 million company. So you can do the same thing in your businesses. You don't have to do 90 million a year. but you can significantly grow. You can double your business. I'll refer to some of these assessments as we go through, and these are the things that we're doing inside of our businesses to help people grow, and I'll talk to you more about those as we go. So I know there's only a tight space in here, but if I could ask everybody to stand up just for one moment. I want to show you something. Now there's only a little bit of room, so try to spread out as much as you can. And if you take your right hand and you point it forward, all the way to the front of the room, point it towards me if you can. Put your chest towards me, face towards me. And what I want you to do with keeping your arm straight, I want you to turn it around and just to see how far you can point. Point it as far as you can go and just remember where that is. Okay? And if it was on a clock, maybe your arm goes to 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9. And just remember that spot. Can you remember that? Okay, good. Have a seat. Now, when you pointed your arm, how far did you point it? Sabina, where did you point to? If it was on a clock from 12 all the way around to 6 or 7, where would have you pointed your arm to? 6. 6? Anybody else have 6 or 7 or 8? 6. Average of 6. Okay, law of attraction brings all the 6s together. Where did you get?
3.
3 o'clock. Why? Why only 3?
Shoes in the way.
Obstacles.
Obstacles.
We can eliminate those. So you pointed to 3?
I think it was 3, yeah.
3, okay. Why didn't you go to 4, other than the obstacle?
Why didn't I?
Interesting. Vanessa, where did you get to?
7.
7. Why didn't you go to 8?
Scapula.
Scapula. Excusitis. Do you know what excusitis is? Does anybody have excusitis? So we do this. We say, Vanessa, can you open up your mouth? And say, ah. Oh, this is excusitis. It's an inflammation of the excuse-making gland. So we make excuses. Where did you guys get to? Bowen. 6. Why didn't you go to 8? You can go to 8. You can't, or you can? You can. Why didn't you go to 8?
Because I'm saving myself for the second round.
You're saving yourself for the second round. Who's saving themselves for the second life? The promised land. Good. Kylie, how far did you go?
6.
Why didn't you go to 7?
I didn't know how.
I didn't know how. Did you ask somebody? Why not? Think about it. We limit ourselves. We limit our potential. And today is about removing those limitations. It's about neutralising the obstacles. It's about thinking about what we can do and what we can't do and finding a way to get there. And I'm going to give you a lot of new ideas. Emotional intelligence. Who's familiar with emotional intelligence? Excellent. Good. Emotional intelligence is 58% of your success in your personal and in your private lives. And it's also the biggest predictor of success. What we know about emotional intelligence today is that if you have a higher level of emotional intelligence than your competitors, you'll on average earn $39,000 more than them. And that holds true for every industry in every country around the world. And if we unlock more emotional intelligence today, you'll make more money. If you unlock 1 more point of emotional intelligence, you will earn on average an extra $1,750 per year. But there's no limit to how much you can grow. You're business people. There's no limit on your incomes. So we can really start to stretch today. Now there's 5 pillars. The first pillar of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. And this is understanding why I think and feel the way that I do. Why can I only go to 6? We need to understand why we can only go to 6 today in order to go to 7 on the second round, or 8, as Bowen says. We have self-regulation, and this is the ability to get out of any mental or emotional rut that you get into. Sometimes we get stressed. Sometimes we lose a sale. And instead of going out and finding another sale, we start to ruminate on the one that we lost. And it can be all-consuming. One of my clients recently, He lost 9 listings in a row, and he got caught up in that, in the mental rut about what he lost, and he stopped taking action. So we have to be able to get out of those mental ruts. Thirdly is motivation, and this is the ability to pursue your goals with energy and persistence. A lot of the times we set a big goal, we get excited, we get that dopamine rush at the start. We then get the adrenaline when we start to move towards it, and the heart starts to pound. And all of a sudden we come up against an obstacle at 3 o'clock and we stop. And we forget how powerful we are, that we can actually move it. And then we stop, we back off. So we need to have a lot of motivation when it comes to pursuing goals. The fourth pillar is empathy. And this is your ability to read the emotional makeup of other people. So what I want you to do today is start to look at other people and start to understand why they think and feel the way that they do. In sales, people make decisions 100% emotionally. So as a salesperson, you have to be able to read that emotional makeup. If you don't read it, you'll lose the sale. If you do read it and you read it correctly, you'll make as many sales as you want to. And then the fifth pillar is social skills. And this is your ability to manage and build networks. Who likes to have single serving customers? They come and buy once and you never see them again. Do you like that?
No.
Or do you prefer customers for life?
Yes.
People who you can do business with week after week, month after month, year after year. Is that easier? Australian businesses, 97% of them require referrals just to survive. But only 3% have a referral plan in place. This is your referral plan. It's your emotional intelligence. If they like you, if they feel comfortable around you, they'll keep coming back over and over and again. Charlie does this very well. 185 listings and sales in 18 months, correct? Runs the business 97% referrals, or how many percent?
Close, yeah, about 92.
92% referrals in her business. So think about how much marketing money you can save by getting good at this. I turned off my marketing machine. I'd spent $60,000 on marketing. I turned it off and my business grew because I focused more on the relationships. And you can do the same. Here's the truth. 70% of the decisions that you make in business will turn out to be wrong in the fullness of time. And what happens is we get caught in the mental rut and we get stuck in the past. So today we're going to learn about how we get out of that. On your tables, there's an emotional quotient assessment. I'll put that there. There's 2 on each table. I'll put that there for you to have a look through it. You can actually measure emotional intelligence today. And what you'll find is that when you know your levels of emotional intelligence, you can actively grow it. So if you want to have a look at what other people's emotional intelligence looks like, have a look inside of this one today. It's quite fascinating what you can discover about yourself. This was a good experience the other week, wasn't it?
Yep.
It was wonderful. Did you learn?
I did.
It's interesting. Now, Jodie Cummings. Does anybody have any illness here? They feel sick, they've felt sick, they keep getting unexplained illnesses? Freudian psychology, what we've discovered is that for the past 100 years, they've learned that people with low levels of emotional intelligence get sick more often, and they find it very hard to heal. Here's Jodie. She's had Crohn's disease for 20 years. When we met, her self-awareness was at 44, where the average person comes in at 74. She didn't know why she felt the way that she did, so she couldn't take the right steps to improve her health. Her self-regulation was low. It was at 50, with the average at 72. So she's already so far behind everybody else. But what happened was she'd get in a mental rut and she would keep telling herself these limiting stories over and over and over and again. And every time she went to the doctor reminded her that she had Crohn's, and she was stuck in the mental rut of Crohn's and illness, and she got stuck there for 20 years. As she started to grow her emotional intelligence, the Crohn's started to disappear. So we reassessed her levels of emotional intelligence a couple of months later, and we noticed it had grown from 44 to 62. we noticed that the self-regulation had grown from 50 to 63, and her pain levels went from 9 down to 1. She used to drive about 800 kilometres every couple of days, and she'd have to stop on the side of the road and go to the bathroom 8 to 9 times every single day. Her bowel movements went all the way down to 1 per day. And this is the first time in 20 years. As she grew more of her emotional intelligence, she grew it up to 64 and 55 in self-regulation. And her pain levels went from 9 to 1 to 0. Her bowel movements are normal, and she went back to the doctor, and they did the internal examinations, and they said, I think we've made a mistake. I think we've got the wrong results here. There's no sign of Crohn's. She said, the results are correct. I'm more emotionally intelligent, and I'm healing myself. And today, there's no symptoms of Crohn's and no symptoms of pain in the body whatsoever, all by increasing the emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence impacts so many different parts of your life. How far can we go? We go to 3, we can go to 6, we can go to 7. We have to learn to unlock our emotional intelligence. We have to learn to unlock more of our individual human potential. So we're going to do an interesting exercise right now. So please grab a pen and please grab a piece of paper, and let's start off with the first exercise. Here's Paul. I met Paul in the UK. He came to an event and he was angry. He said, I don't believe in any of this stuff. And he sat in the back of the room with his arms folded. On the first day he was crying. On the second day he was crying. On the third day he was crying. On the fourth day he was crying. And on the fifth day he was still crying. And he was letting go of all of his mental and emotional blockages. Remember what happened in Richmond? All the pipes burst. So what Paul had was a frustration of unfulfilled potential. He looked at his shoes and he didn't like the shoes that he was wearing. He looked at the relationship that he was in. He wasn't happy in the relationship. He knew he could have better, but he had limited himself. He looked at his car that he drove and compared that to his dream car. And he says, I should have that. I'm entitled to it. I've got the skill, I've got the knowledge, but it's all tied up inside of me. And he was frustrated. And he was earning about £2,000 per month. That's it, £2,000. He struggled. Now, what I was shocked at was that Paul had some of the highest levels of emotional intelligence I'd ever seen. Some of the highest. I have done emotional quotient assessments with more than 786 people around the world. I'm the #1 in focal point for debriefing emotional quotient assessments. And this guy had a level of 88 for his self-awareness. He knew who he was, but he couldn't utilise his potential. His self-regulation was at 90, but he still couldn't reach in and get all of that potential outside of himself. His motivation was high, but what he had was he had mental blocks that prevented him from doing what he wanted to do. So, Paul improved his self-awareness by 2%. It's not a lot, is it? 2%. And he went from 0 sales experience to selling more than £2 million worth of kitchens in a year. And there's 1,500 people in his organisation that he works with. 1,500 salespeople. And he went from the bottom with no experience to the top inside of 12 months. He's now in the top 1% of salespeople there. And all he did was unlock his emotional intelligence by another 2%. Now, in terms of earnings, he went from earning £2,000 a month to £10,000 a month. He wears £500 shoes and he wears £1,000 suits, all in a year. And that's what we want for you today. Janet, age is no barrier. 61. In her 50s, she lost her business. She went bankrupt. She felt guilt for losing money. She felt guilt for the money that she owed to suppliers. And she felt shame. And she wanted to try again. She wanted to get up and she wanted to try again. But for years and years and years, she said, no, I don't deserve this anymore. I made mistakes and I'm going to make mistakes again. I should just play it safe. So she took a job and she played it safe, but she had a feeling of unfulfilled potential. She knew she could do so much more. So we started to work with Janet. We had a look at her levels of emotional intelligence. We showed her how to neutralise the rejection, the criticism, and the guilt. And in 90 days, she increased her sales by £50,000 per month. She called me up, she said, Daniel, I can actually retire at 63. I don't have to work for the rest of my life. So I'm going to show you how we did that. There's a great formula for unlocking your potential. And the formula is IA plus AA times A equals individual human potential. So we're going to have a look at your inborn attributes. What do you bring with you each and every day? What's in your bloodline? What are your genealogical characteristics? My grandfather was in the Air Force, so he had to look his best every day. This is in my blood. I want to look good every day. He was a military man. You had to look good, so I learned that. My father was a farmer. He grew watermelons and potatoes and citrus. And what I learned from my bloodline was you wake up in the morning and you work. And you keep working until the job is done. And only then you can come home. So this exists in me already. These things exist in you. My mother was a hairdresser. So I've got to have my hair looking good. I've got to look my best. And what do hairdressers do? They stand there and they talk to people all day. And the attention is on the client when they come in, isn't it? You don't tell your clients all your problems. You listen to their problems. So these things are inside of you. These are inborn attributes. We then add those to the acquired attributes. This is the knowledge and the skills that you've acquired throughout life. It's also all of your failures that you've ever had. You'll learn more from your failures than you will from your success. But you have to remember all of these learnings. I've had some epic failures throughout my life. I made business mistakes and I ended up on Centrelink. I learned not what to do. I've studied NLP, I've studied personal development. I've been in family business for 37 years. I've seen what works, what doesn't work. And these are all the things that I've learned throughout my life. And then we times that by our attitude. And our attitude is our angle of attack. It's how we approach business. It's how we approach our customers. It's how we approach sales. And we can change our attitude at any given moment. But we have to put this into a formula. So we put this into a formula by taking notes. By writing notes today, you're going to be smarter. Did you know that? Every time you take a note in your handwriting, it's a psychoneuromotor activity. It embeds this knowledge into your subconscious mind, and you'll always remember it. Your writing is as unique to you as your thumbprint, as your iris. And every time you write down notes, you store it in your memory bank, and you never forget. You always remember. So we're going to do this exercise. So inborn attributes plus acquired attributes times attitude equals your individual human potential. And this is how far you can go in this lifetime. And I guarantee that there's nobody in this room who says, I can't go further than where I'm at now. Who could go another 25% more sales and income? Who could go another 50%? Who could grow another 1,000%? The top companies in the world at the moment are growing by an average of 42,000%. 42,000% per year. And you can too. So let's figure it out. Jason, come on up. Thanks for volunteering. So let's do this together. This man's got some great qualities, and let's unpack it. This is a young man. How old, Jason?
Well, I look 36. Right?
36, 25, good to say. Come and jump in the hot seat. Already has a 7-figure business. He was earning $600 a week as an electrician just a couple of years ago. He got abused by his boss, made feel like shit, and he said, you know what, I'm out. I'm going to go live life on my terms. And he's already built a 7-figure business. What an achievement. Good job. Now, not everybody's life is easy, and not everybody has the perfect life, and nor should we. So we're going to unpack what's happened. So your inborn attributes. Tell me, what are some positive traits about your father, you started your life in the United Kingdom and you came over as a migrant, as a poor migrant family. So what are some of the inborn attributes? What have you learned from your father over the years?
So my father, I call him dad. So my dad, he's, I guess you'd say almost naively stubborn.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like, there's something that, it's like if you want something, he's going to set his mind to when he's going to get it, but it's usually not for himself, it's for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I did learn that he's extremely hardworking too. He used to work like 14 to 16 hour days over Christmas and stuff like that when he ran his own business, so extremely hardworking. He's very people driven.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned that my dad's background runs his own business as not electrician, painter.
Mm-hmm.
So he's very people driven because he runs his own business. He has to deal with them all day long. So I've learned that from him. So stubborn, hardworking, people driven. Then what else did I learn from my dad? To yell a lot. I'm not too sure. I can really think right now. If I think of the top 3 traits, that's got to be him.
Beautiful. So stubborn. Do you need to be stubborn in business?
Yes.
100%. Do you need to be a hard worker? Is this natural for you? You work.
No, not really, man. I feel like I'm the opposite. Like, I think it's because I've seen him work so hard, I thought there has to be a better way. So I think I have that hard working when I need to, but I definitely redesign that.
But you do work at 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I don't feel like it's work though.
And he's people driven. So these are qualities that exist inside of him already. They're there. They're inside the personality. What about from your mum? What are some of the qualities you've got from your mum?
I'd have to say very confident. She'll have a chat with anyone, pretty much.
Who would like to have more confidence? If you had more confidence, would you close sales more often? Would you prospect and knock on doors and ring on bells, do cold calls? Good. Confidence. What else?
So she's got the ability to start a conversation with anyone.
Mm-hmm.
I think that goes back to the confidence and people driven, but it's definitely a talent in its own. And then my mum and my dad like match with the stubborn. They're both ridiculously stubborn. They also match with the yelling. Like, they're good at that.
So these things exist inside of us, but we have to be aware of it, and that's self-awareness. These qualities can help us or they can hurt us, but we have to know what's there. So these are inborn attributes. We could spend years looking at all this, but we just want to know these top qualities. Now, throughout the years, Jason's had life experiences. He came close to death. He had a near-death experience, almost got killed. And that's a quiet attribute. Something happened in that moment that changed his life forever. So what are some of the things that you've learned over the years? Knowledge, skills, or experience?
Well, I think experience, going back to what you just said there, is never ever wait for anything. That's one thing I learned. I learned to kind of go for everything that I want because tomorrow isn't guaranteed. Hence why I think you've already seen it, the tattoo on my arm, that has an experience.
Mm-hmm.
So the near death did give me that kind of like experience to go forward, chase everything I want right now. Something else I'd learned, I guess experiences I've learned is to work smarter because I have seen my dad, kind of like almost, as they say, typically work to the bone, but he literally, I mean, I can't say, I'm not one of those kids who are just like, oh, I never saw my dad. I did. And I think another experience is to enjoy the finer things in life. Because my dad, the reason he worked so hard is because he wanted to give us all the nice things, and then sometimes I guess that can backfire, but for me, it didn't. It just made me work harder because I've experienced the finer things in life. And then I think the last thing I'd have to say is, because of like I've been blessed to grow a 7-figure business that quickly, I've spent a lot of time with very high level people.
Mm-hmm.
So in my experience, what I have learned is spending time around other people that are way, way above you is unreal. I mean, like, take for example, whenever I go to New York for those masterminds, I come back just feeling like on top of the world, and then you put me in Adelaide for 2 weeks, back down. So I think in my experience is environment.
So Jason probably at the moment spends about $90,000 a year on masterminds, learning from the best and acquiring knowledge. So he's got these inborn attributes: stubbornness, hard work, people driven, confidence, conversations, and the stubbornness again. He adds those with his acquired attributes and all the things he's learned, his near-death experience. He's learned what it's like to come close to losing everything, your life. You never wait, you go for everything, you work smarter, you enjoy the finer things, and you spend money on education. So these things are then combined with his attitude. And attitudes are the expectations about yourself. Expectations. And also the angle of attack, the way you approach business and people and life. So what do you expect of yourself in business, Jason? What do you expect out of your life?
Well, if you'd have asked me that 3 years ago, it would have been a different story. But right now, I personally don't expect anything less than exceptional. I feel like I dropped below that mark a couple months ago, and when we had those conversations, you knew all about that. But yeah, one of my big things for myself is it's not perfection. It's just being exceptional, whatever I consider myself to be the best at. So always driving to be the best at. I mean, you know me, I don't ever try and do like 90,000 things. But the one thing that I'm supposed to be the best at, I will push myself to excel. Also, one of the attitudes I think I've developed that has really helped me get to where I am today, and something that I like to keep on myself, is just at that, what you said before, awareness, is always constantly having that awareness, like knowing that like it doesn't really matter who you are, where you are. Like you could be a billionaire right now and lose it all tomorrow. So it's having that awareness to know when I'm slipping, and again, you'll know this because 3 to 4 months ago we started having the conversation. I felt like I was slipping, then I did kind of slip a bit and then I picked back up. So that awareness and just constantly pushing to be exceptional at what I am, I think it's probably the two top ones I could think of.
Beautiful.
If that helps.
So we've got his inborn attributes. Is that clear? This is what exists inside of him. He's got his acquired attributes and his life experiences, and then he has his attitude. And this is how he's going to approach life and business. Now, based on that, we'll determine how far Jason can go. So this is what already builds a 7-figure business. Clear to see? Do you think this will get him to 8 figures? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because this is the qualities that exist in him. And he's just got to now utilize them to his advantage. And that's your individual human potential, which will determine how far you can go in life. So when you stop and reflect on your inborn attributes, on your acquired attributes, you'll realize that what you're achieving now is good, but it's not great. You can go so much further. Who believes they can go further? Good, excellent. So let's do the exercise. What I'd like you to do, I'd like you to work with the person next to you. Just like Jason and I did, I want you to interview them and consult them and ask them, what are your inborn attributes? Now, there might be qualities that you don't like about your parents, but sometimes you can use those qualities to your favour. So look at it very objectively. Ask them about their acquired attributes, the experiences, what they've studied, what they've learned along the way, what courses they've taken along the way, and write it down. Let them talk. The part of psychology is getting people to talk. And what happens is if they talk and talk and talk, they have a Freudian slip, and then they have a aha moment, and they say, my gosh, I totally forgot about that. And just one new idea in this exercise is enough for you to double your income. Just one new idea. One new idea. So I'd like you to work with the person next to you. We'll do this for about 5 to 10 minutes apiece, about 20 minutes in total, and ask them all of this and grill them. Ask them why you said that. What else would you like to add? And find out and help them discover just how far they can go. Any questions on the exercise? 5 to 10 minutes apiece, 15 to 20 minutes in total. We'll give you a little ting, ting, ting on the glass when it's time to swap over, and work with the person next to you. I need a bell. I was good on the tambourine at school, and the triangle. I used to play the triangle at school, and they thought I was in the Illuminati. Jay-Z, look out. Okay, let's unpack the exercise. Starting on the left here, what was a learning that you took away about yourself? What would you like to share from that exercise? What's on your mind? What popped up? Did you learn something about yourself?
It's amazing how much you actually do take from your parents without even realising. I knew there was a few things, but then as you go into it, just kind of free flow, like, wow, there's so much that you kind of take on.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them were positive, which were good, but then you kind of, a few kind of negative things pop in, and you're like, do I still have that? And it kind of makes you think twice. I thought that was interesting.
Did I tell you the story about tightening my belt? Did I tell you that? So I won't take it off and smack anybody. I just got married, and I'd probably been married for about 6 months and were living in Dubai. And my wife said, let's go to the movies. And I said, oh, sweetheart, the economy is no good. And she looked at me, she said, oh, I want to go to the movies. And I said, the economy is no good. She said, okay, rightio. And we're living in Dubai and getting money from Emirates and you're getting layover money, and there's money there. And then she said, can we go out for dinner? And I said, baby, we've got to tighten the belt. Times are tough. And she's looking at me going, who's this freak that I've married? And for about 6 months, I kept repeating this same saying, I've got to tighten my belt. I've got to tighten the belt. We've got to tighten the belt. We've got to stop spending money. And she looked at me, she said, what has got into you? And I thought about it and I said, it's my mother. And I rang Mum and I said, Mum, did you used to tell me that we had to tighten the belt? She said, yeah. In 1988, in 1999, 88, 89, your father and I started a business and we spent about $500,000 on plant equipment. And for the first month, it rained and we almost lost our shirts. And she said, we would have told you to tighten your belt because we had to stop expenditure. And then I said, well, who told this to you? She said, well, your grandmother would have said it to me. And so it's starting to go down the bloodline. And I ring up my grandmother and I said, grandmother, why did you tell Mum that she had to tighten the belt? She said, well, we went through a recession and a depression and we had nothing. Your grandfather was in the Air Force. We moved from Darwin to Sydney and all over the country and we had nothing. So we had to tighten the belt. And I said, well, who told this to you? She said, well, your great grandmother told it to me. And I said, why would she tell it to you? She said, because when I was about 6 years old, your great grandfather walked out on the family. And there was your grandmother and 6 children. And we had to fend for ourselves. We did not know when we were going to get our next meal. We did not know if we were going to eat that day. So we had to tighten the belts. And it had passed down through the bloodline and it had become a limitation. And I looked at my wife and I thought, how horrible is that as a husband? What a gift. Hey, get married to me, now tighten your belt. Allah Akbar, praise God she's still with me. So these things follow us around.
Yeah.
And there's a positive and a negative side to it.
Yeah, I understood my experience that as well. My grandfather as well was about not being able to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, yeah. I won't get too into it, but yeah, very similar.
Yeah,
Crazy.
got to be so aware of this. Excellent insight. Next, what would you like to share?
I'll share something. I just had a really phenomenal realisation, which actually is more I think about it, the bigger it's getting. My dad and pop, dad wasn't around much, so dad and pop was sort of the role of dad, essentially, in my family. And they were the rocks to the family, so it was 2 uncles and mother, and they were just a mess. And they were what sort of made the family work. They were the glue to it all, they were the rocks, the anchors. And they had so much potential and so much money coming in, but a lot of it went to the family, and they kept on work and to take care of mistakes and all that. And I've realised how much of their potential was taken up trying to look after everyone else instead of themselves. And they're still suffering from that state to some extent. They're comfortable, but they're not great. And I was like, realised how much of a mirror role that played in my life.
Interesting, interesting. So there's so much more potential to be unlocked now that you can tap into. Excellent, good insight. Anybody else? Next table. Insights. You want to share something? Yeah, talk up.
Talking about our parents, you realise how much you do draw from your parents. For me, I notice how much my mum and I are very different, and she creates a conflict of interest in my life. So she's a pessimistic and I'm an optimistic. So when it comes to business, I've always got my mum in the back of my head, don't do that. So that was a mental block that I noticed by doing that.
Has anybody had crabs before?
All times.
Is everybody going to admit to that?
See, fishermen are really smart, and when they were out fishing, these fishermen were catching crabs, and they'd take the crabs out of the cray pots, what they catch them in, and they'd put them in a bucket. And what they realised was when they put the crab in the bucket, the crab could get its little pincers and pull itself out of the bucket and scuttle away to freedom. That's how they do it. And they'd scuttle away. And what the fishermen thought was, this is hard work. We've got to catch these crabs, we've got to put them in the bucket, now we've got to tie up their pincers. And that takes a lot of work to tie up the pincers because they get bitten. There was a guy the other day who got bitten by a crab and he got a flesh-eating disease. And he had to get both of his arms amputated. So this is the problem with crabs. And g'day, Lincoln. And so what the fishermen discovered was that one day they put 2 crabs in a bucket and none of the crabs got out. And they sat there and they watched them. They saw that when one crab put its pincer up and tried to get outside of the bucket, the other crab would pull it back down. And they started to call this crab mentality. And what crab mentality says is, if I can't have it, neither can you. And they pull you back down. So let me ask the question, have you had crabs before? You still got them? Don't sit in that seat and get out of the bucket. Good, excellent. Crabs in the bucket. Insights. G'day, Lincoln.
Hey, Daniel.
How are you, big fella?
Fantastic, thank you.
Long time no see. Any shares, any insights? Caesar? Sarah?
Well, I find something interesting here when I compare my inborn attributes with acquired attributes. If I can put them together, some of them, because it looks like I've got some different and opposite characteristics here. I'm serious of what I got from my father, let's say serious, and from serious and shy, and from my mother's side, explosive, extrovert, and impulsive. If you put this together, it doesn't make sense. But it can be a good thing as well. You can make different stuff from there. I acquired languages because I lived in different countries. Confidence. What else? I always try to give first and then receive from people, which is probably from my extrovert side of my mom. And that's basically what we got, right?
When you came up with that limiting belief that we discovered, pulling you back.
Yeah. Limiting belief that I probably have is that I feel that I have to put too much energy into something that I'm trying to deliver, and it is easier. It's always easier, actually. But because I'm dealing with many different languages at the same time, I'm always looking for the best expression, the best sentence, the best word, and it takes time and energy to get there. And sometimes it's just a word, just spit out.
Do you have those limitations in one language but not in the other language?
No, I think in all languages, they're all the same.
So the world's a different place if you speak different languages. In Arabic, you can't fly an aircraft because there's no concept for flying in the Arabic language. In Chinese, the translation for aircraft is feiji, but when you hear it, it sounds like flying chicken. But the translation actually means flying machine. So if you're in your Chinese speaking brain or any other speaking brain, the world is a totally different place. And we've also found that people have mental blocks in their mother tongue and not in their English tongue, and vice versa.
And what I tend to do is, because I know in some languages, some expressions are so awesome, it sounds so good, I try to translate into another language in a different context. It doesn't work, and it's taking me energy, and people are waiting to see what's coming, and I'm processing here, but how can I translate that? And at the end, I didn't have to do that. It's just too much hassle. You just have to speak what it is in English, let's say here, for this audience, right?
Well done. Excellent. Good. Any final thoughts? Any insights?
This exercise has actually cost me money. Because I've been able to realise how much my mum did for me, so I'm going to tell her to keep the loan. Honestly, I lent her money, but now I feel bad, so she's going to have it now, because it's sort of opened your eyes of, you know, what she did bringing us up and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Let's get her on a Zoom call now.
It's cost me $1,000.
I didn't tell you there was a cost to this, did I? Good. So these are all the insights. And this is individual human potential. Based on this exercise, could you grow another 1% more than what you're doing today? Could you grow another 10%? Good. Well, your job is to make it happen. Just inch by inch. Inch by inch, it's a cinch. By the yard, it's hard. So just a little bit. Sure.
So it was very interesting what you just said, and actually made me think about something. So let's say, for example, if you, you know, had some limitations in French. So, you know, you were in France, and up until the age of 10, you lived in France, and you had all these limitations, and then you started working, and then, you know, you moved to an English-speaking country at the age of 11. And you've done a whole bunch of work, you've let go of all of this stuff in English, but does that mean that there's still some limitations in your initial language anchored into your body? Is that still a possibility?
Absolutely. Because it's neurological.
Then how do you go about solving that without speaking the same language kind of thing?
Yep. Well, if we put it back into the work that we know, you'd have to get back to the root cause of it. So if you worked at the root cause, then the rest of the chain, gestalt, would collapse.
So you don't have to necessarily go back something with the language, it's just...
No.
Okay.
Because and sometimes with different languages, it's pre-linguistic. So it's like children, you grow. So Caesar, my son, is 14 months. And you can speak to him in Chinese and in English, and he understands it. But before he can speak, he'll already have mental blocks. And they're things that he could have acquired from family members, friends, society, what's happening in time. It could even, most of your mental blocks, by the way, come from a time where you're most unconscious. And that's the time in your mother's womb. Do you remember your story? Would you share that? Kylie's got a great story about a limitation that started in the womb. Come on up, yeah, come on up. It's a great story, by the way. Do you want to stay, are you shallow people or are you people who like to go deep? You want to go deep? Let's deep dive. It's a great story, great story. Lincoln would have been there the day this happened.
Lincoln was. Hi, Lincoln. Hey, Kylie. How you going?
Kylie and I have lived next door to each other for 30 years.
Yes.
30 years, my next door neighbour.
Yeah.
Yeah, jump in the hot seat. Great story.
Okay. So I have, for as long as I can remember, struggled with body image and weight, and I really did not know why. And I have been very successful in losing weight and had some, a lot of success, but struggled to keep it off, and regained a lot of weight after having my 3 miracle babies. And I started to look at, there's got to be something else, but I really didn't know what it was. And I came to Daniel for some timeline therapy and some NLP. And we discovered that while I was in the womb, when my mum fell pregnant, she had a nervous breakdown because she had a premature birth before that, and she couldn't breastfeed, and they tried to make her. And back then, if you couldn't breastfeed, there was something really wrong with you. So they locked her up in Chelmsford, and they gave her shock therapy to try and make her breastfeed her baby, and which didn't work. And then 6 months after she had him, she fell pregnant with me, and she did not want to have another baby. And she was overweight, and she went to the doctor, and the doctor said he does not like fat women, and she was on a nil weight gain. And so she was, the whole time that she was pregnant with me, she was terrified of putting on a pound. My whole life has been about weight. And I didn't know any of that. And this came up in the session, and I went in the lunch break and I rang my mum and I said, "Mum, when you fell pregnant with me, were you happy?" And she said, "Well, yes, but..." I said, "Because, like, I've just done this thing with Daniel, and like I saw the doctor tell you that you were fat." And then she told me the exact story that I told Daniel. word for word. It was like I was repeating her. So, and I did not have any knowledge of that. Yeah,
So you remember everything that you've ever seen. You remember everything that you've heard. You remember everything that you've felt, that you've said to yourself. And then you've collected everything in the environment. Everything that you've heard on TV is programmed in your subconscious mind. And you can recall it. And it's always active in the system. And for Kylie, through regression, she accessed that word for word.
yeah.
And that was a major limitation in her life. So once you discover the root cause, you can let it go. And since letting that go, Kylie's life has transformed.
Yeah.
Totally transformed. She's won 2 international holidays with the company that she works with, and she's the first and only person to ever have sold in excess of $1 million worth of product in her company.
Yeah.
And it all started by unlocking more of that potential. Well done. Good story. So these things will hold us back. Good job. Nice deep dive. You're doing well.
Daniel, that's for cell. They say every cell in our body has got a memory.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a classic example of that.
Yep. And this is the danger of bodily replacements, bodily part replacements. So there was a story in a book called The Heart Code by Dr. Paul Pearsall. Men, you might like this story. The ladies, you might shy away from it, but it's not my story. I'm just repeating it. A woman had a heart problem and she needed to have her heart replaced. So she went in for surgery and they replaced the heart. A couple of weeks after, her libido rapidly increased. And her husband and her were having sex like they've never had it before. And the husband's like, I love my new wife, this is fantastic. And then it's sex after sex after sex. And he's like, this is too much. Something's wrong. So they went back to the doctor and they said, look, my wife's healthy, we're happy, but we might be having a bit too much sex. And the doctor's like, is that a problem? And he's like, well, it is, because it's just too much. So they started to look into what had happened and they started to trace the heart back. Now, the heart belonged to a prostitute. And because of the cellular memory which existed in the heart, once it was transplanted into the new person, she just loved sex. And that was how he described his wife. He said, it's like she's a prostitute. So if you're ever having any transfusions, any replacements of anything, just research where it came from.
Daniel, it's interesting because I had a really bad car accident, and in the car accident I crushed the front right side of my brain, which controlled my memory, and the brain injuries unit taught me that every cell in our body has our memory in it, so you only need to be able to trigger something by way of smell or touch or feel to actually regain those memories. So I regained a lot of memories through that too. So yeah, it's interesting that's why the heart, the memories, they're all there.
Yep, everything. You remember everything, okay? You're doing well. So as we go through today, we're going to form a mastermind. Now, who's ever seen a Ford motor vehicle? You've ever seen one? Have you ever heard about it? Well, Henry Ford had more than 50 people in his mastermind, but he had about a level year 7 education. He was illiterate, he had problems with writing and reading. But what he did was he brought in the best of the best. He looked at the best brains and he brought them into one room and he said, when we connect together, we just don't form 1 + 1, 2 minds, we form what's called a superconscious mind. And it's when all of our minds connect. So 1 + 1 in a mastermind equals 3. And he brought in 50 of the top thinkers in the world. So what I want you to do today is to think like a mastermind. Each table is going to be your own mastermind. And these people on your table will support you to become more successful throughout the day. So how does the mastermind work? First of all, there's 2 characteristics. The first one is economic. The more time you spend with successful people, the more your levels of success increase. And the current statistic is if you spend time with 5 people more successful than you in different areas, your level of success will increase by 375%. So your incomes can go up today. Also, it's psychic. So what happens is you start to transfer thoughts through psychic energy. And once you create your own mastermind, you're going to be connected forever. And I encourage you to swap business cards and to stay in contact because this is your new tribe. You're looking for people to help you grow and succeed, And these people on the table today will help you do that. Now, there's 5 commitments. First of all is, in a mastermind, you always want to maintain a positive mental attitude. Secondly, you want to share ideas and opinions openly. Be totally honest with one another. There was a survey done recently, and they said if somebody had bad breath, sorry, the first question was, if you had bad breath, would you want somebody to tell you? And everybody said 100%, I would want them to tell me I had bad breath. The second question was, if somebody had bad breath, would you tell them? And everybody said no. And I was tested with that downstairs yesterday. I was telling Jason, there was a lovely girl on the counter. She smiled, her hair was done. She looked amazing. But the breath was death breath. It was like, what, have you seen Harry Potter? The Dementors, they come out and they suck all your energy. It was like the breath was doing that to me. But I didn't tell her. But what I want you to do today is I want you to be honest with one another. Ask good questions and give honest feedback. Be blunt, be direct. There's no point beating around the bush. Where are the men in the room? You ask your wife, sweetheart, where would you like to go for dinner tonight? She says, take me anywhere. You say, good, we'll go to Indian. I don't want Indian. Okay, we'll go for pizza. I hate pizza. Okay, we'll go for a hamburger. I hate hamburgers. Well, just tell me where you want to go. Anywhere. So we're back at the start. So what I want you to do, just be direct, be honest. Ask lots of questions and encourage discovery. Think about it. Go deeper. 4, give everyone a chance to speak. So the more that the other people speak, the more you've got to listen, but the more you'll learn. And think of this as an acquired attribute. We have people with very successful businesses in here, all types of businesses, and just one new idea is enough to double your income. And 5thly, be diligent in their efforts to encourage and support each other. Encourage one another. Come on, talk, say it. What do you really think? And get the best out of one another. Because I guarantee that when you leave this room today, nobody else is going to do that for you. But the people in here will. So there are our 5 commitments. Now, Jack Welch, he was the former GM of General Electric. And he said, I'm not a consultant. I'm an insultant. And what a consultant does is they ask blunt questions. They put your feet to the fire. And the kindest thing that you can do is in somebody's life is to put their feet to the fire. And I do this with my clients. I ask them questions and they squirm and they don't like it and they go away and they think about it and they come back and their business has grown. So you've got to ask good questions. Your job today is to be a consultant. So as we consult our partners, what we need to figure out is what one action are you going to take immediately as a result to the answers to your questions. Because thinking's good, but if you don't take action, it was just a waste of time. It was just an exercise of, we call it mental candy. We're just talking. We want mental protein. We want to take action. We'll ask them, why did you choose that? And I want you to explain it to me in detail, because we want them to think for the second and the third time. And then we'll ask them, how will you measure success? How will you measure success? How are you going to measure it? Well, I'm going to put $1,000 in my mum's bank account, or I'm going to tell her loan's cancelled. That's how you could measure it. And then 4thly is we'll ask, what is your expected date of completion and why did you choose this date of completion? So we want to ask people these questions. So we'll play with Jason. Jason, based on this, and you've added passion here. Jason had a time to think and he thought, I didn't add passion. So based on this exercise, what action are you going to take immediately based on the answers here?
So what you're talking about, what else were you talking about? So what action am I going to take immediately? It's fun. You already know about my webinar. So this is kind of the long route. It's not long, but it sounds longer than it should be. But you know, I'm kind of transitioning from running the agency to more consulting, teaching people to grow businesses. But I know that it's not going to be an easy transition. So I know that I need to take everything right there. Literally, I need to be people driven because I'm dealing with other people that want to grow businesses.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be super stubborn. I have to be hardworking.
Good.
I have to be passionate.
Why did you say stubborn?
Because I know that I'm going to get knocked back several times. I'm going to throw out a webinar. I'm going to think sales are going to roll in, and it's probably not going to happen because that's just not the way life works. You know. But I have to be stubborn. So I have to be stubborn enough to believe in myself that that webinar is going to be successful, that training is successful. It's just I have to be stubborn enough to find the right one. Like we talked about yesterday, it's like the law of averages. Like if you just do it enough times, it's going to work.
Good. And how will you measure that success? How will you measure this stubbornness?
So there's two ways I'm going to measure it. It's A, in the success of the clients that I work with, and B, the money in my bank. Because if it's in my bank, that is the right thing.
Yep. So if you don't have a measurement, you can't move towards it. You can't measure what you've done. It's like going down the freeway and refusing to look at your speedometer. Oh, I'm intuitive, I'm an intuit. I'm just going to intuit my speed in my car. And then all of a sudden all the flashes going off. You've got to have a number to calibrate and to measure. And what's your expected date of completion? Is there an expected date of completion?
Well, no completion, but there is an expected date to hit a certain milestone.
Okay, excellent. What's that date?
It is now the 1st of February 2019, using your exact words. Yep.
Good, good.
And I want it to be doing $100,000 in revenue, at least $50,000 a month in profit.
Excellent. Good. See how he's thought through it. He's thought through the details. So I want you to do the same thing with your partners now. 2 minutes each, turn to the person next to you, based on the answers to the individual human potential, ask them these questions and put their feet to the fire. It's the kindest thing that somebody can do for you and you can do for somebody else. 4 minutes in total, 2 minutes each, away you go.